Well, thanks for joining us. I'm here with Domini Forster, who's Melting Pot's Artist of the Month for December, and she'll be joining us here at the magnificent Cromwell Studios, where Songwriters in the Round, the final one for the year, will be happening on the 9th of December. Thanks for joining us, Dom.
A pleasure, Josh.
Great to see you.
You too.
So we're just going to have a quick chat about you as an artist, and hopefully Dom will play a song afterwards as well. And
if you're lucky.
If we're lucky. I think we'll be lucky. 2015 and 16's been pretty great sort of year for you, and pretty big, and we might get to that a bit later. But I think first we'll start off, just tell us how music started for you, when you began writing, and sort of why you started writing.
Oh, God, that's a big question. I went to a Steiner school as a kid, if anyone has been to Steiner, I went from periwinkle, which is like the equivalent of kindergarten, I suppose, or daycare even, all the way to year 12. And so I'm a Steiner kid through and through. And we had heaps of music always at school. We had to play, we played recorder and xylophones and choirs, and, you have to, in my school, you had to play a stringed instrument from grade 3 onwards. So I played violin from grade 3 to grade 7, and then I loved it, so I kept on going. And, it was always a massive part of life at school, and my mum was always, she was never involved in music in like a formal way back then, but she always sang, and I don't know, I can't kind of point my finger at a moment where it began, but I just always loved singing and was always super involved in it at school, always performed lots. And then I know my friend and I used to write terrible, songs about boys when we were like 10 and 11. And then at some point, one of those boys taught me a few chords on guitar, and that was when I sort of started writing songs. And the first song I wrote actually was a song about breaking up with him, which seems like a poor way to thank him. But yeah. And once I started writing songs, I think it's a cathartic thing for me. It just felt so satisfying, and there was never any question as to whether I would stop doing that.
Right. Yeah. So little did he know he was setting himself up for failure with that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. And, touching on that, I guess, listening to a lot of the stuff that you do write and listening to your lyrics, you seem to draw inspiration from a lot of things around you. Is there anything in particular that tends to come to the fore, or is it just whatever's sort of driving you at the moment that captures you?
I suppose, I suppose, as I said, I'm cathartic, so it's often emotional stuff that's going on for me, but then there's an element of kind of taking artistic license at that point because, my life isn't that interesting. So, often it comes from stories in my life, and then the kind of creative writer in me gets in there and embellishes them. I actually had this girl message me who had bought my EP and really loved it, and she was like 11 or so and had just started writing songs, and she said to me, she was like, how do you get your ideas for what to write about? Because, all my friends just write about boys and it's so boring, and I want to write about other things, and your songs are really interesting. And I was like, oh shit, does she know that they're mostly about boys? The lyrics are ambiguous, but...
That's the way you bluff your way through it, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Look, it is that whole love and heartbreak thing. It's hard to get away from. It's just such a big part of being
life.
Human.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've sort of been involved with Melting Pot for quite a while now. We've had you on at our events a couple of times, and what is it specifically that you enjoy about playing for us, and what we bring to, I guess, for artists as well?
Look, I love Melting Pot and Songwriters in the Round specifically of the things that you guys do, because I grew up in a pretty community-centred place and have gone to a lot of house concerts in my time, and that style of music just feels like the core of where music started for humans, that round the campfire, sharing stories in song form. It feels like the core of it for me, and I love playing to people who want to listen as well, and Songwriters is about that. It's about getting together, celebrating music, sharing songs with other songwriters and with an audience who are there really to, like, even just the format of everyone being in a circle, looking inwards. It's like it's all designed to really celebrate song as a storytelling tool.
Yeah, I think, you know, a big part of, as you say, is the audience just being completely silent during the song. A lot of people tend to really enjoy that aspect of it, because you can be in a lot of venues and, you know, it's basically just background noise what you're doing because people are just going about their business and sort of not really paying attention to what's going on. So having that
can go two ways because it can be an incredibly awkward thing as an artist to play in that context, especially if your pride sort of like arcs up, if your ego's like, hey, wait a second. But I actually have played a couple of gigs where I've just been like, all right, you guys aren't listening? Screw it. I'm going to have a really fun time and just like just play my heart out. But like absolutely, it like that can be fun every now and then, but that's not what we're doing it for.
Absolutely. And just touching back on the last couple of years that you've had a huge spot for you supporting Lior. Was a national tour, was it?
Yeah, it's sort of been a bunch of them. I got incredibly lucky. I played a songwriting competition and Lior was the guest artist. Yep. So when the judges went away to decide who was going to win, he played for the audience. And
beautiful.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen him live and he blew me away. And he afterwards backstage, pardon me, he came up to me and said, you know, I really liked your song. I'd love you to play with me sometime if you liked. And I was just like,
sure.
and didn't know whether I would necessarily hear from him. But sort of a couple of weeks later, he asked me to play a couple of shows in Bendigo and Ballarat.
Yep.
And he has lovely audiences who really seem to love my music. And so it went really well. And after that, we did a bunch of sort of small regional tours over the next sort of year or so. And then a big national tour for the 10th anniversary of his first album, which was super
amazing thing
fun.
To be a part of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was such an incredible record and so many people have such a connection to it. So that was pretty amazing.
And obviously things have sort of, you can ride on the coattails of that a bit. Things are exploding for you and you've got some new music coming up, which we're all pretty excited about. Tell us about the album that's due out next year.
Cool. So, it's called Raven. And I recorded it with Nick Huggins, who, you know Nick?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone knows Nick. He's the sweetest man in the universe. And I recorded it with him at his home studio in Point Lonsdale.
Lovely.
And then Lockie, who's Lior's sound engineer, mixed it. And it felt, it was really fun and really hard and all the things. If any musician tells you making an album is like just fun and easy, they're totally
making it up. Yeah.
But it was an amazing process and I stressed about it and, you know, and put my heart and soul and sweat and blood and tears into it. And I'm a perfectionist, so it's sort of hard sometimes being an artist and being a perfectionist, but I feel really happy with it. I feel like it's got a lot of me in it.
Great.
And it's beautiful sounds. So, you know.
Brilliant. And I'm sure we'll be hearing some of those songs on Friday, the 9th of December here at Cromwell Studios. For songwriters in the round, we're really looking forward to having you here.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again, Dom Forster, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Excellent.